Hello again. Thanks for joining me. You've undoubtedly noticed that any conversations about generational differences conveniently leave X out of the equation. For some of us, that's fine. For others like me, it's curious. And then it dawned on me. Perhaps generations that followed us often omit Gen X because they think we're dead, that we somehow didn't make it out alive. You know what I'm talking about. You've all seen the shows, those videos like things 80s kids did that would never fly today, and they're so shocked that we even survived. Well, here we are. Well, most of us. I'm Victor, and straight out of the GEN Xperience, our way of life. What we took for granted every day has become a subject of shock and awe. Younger generations and their parents casually dismiss the whole generation because, quite simply, they don't understand us, or else they figure none of us survived. I'm here to remind you, we didn't just survive, we thrived. What was it that we did to cause such indignation, such agita, that our lives were considered so perilous we couldn't have made it out alive? Let's find out, shall we? Could it be the slide? Careening down a long baking sheet hotter than the surface of the sun? We did that, and we liked it. Third-degree burns and all. The playground I remember was full of all kinds of equipment, metal equipment, hot metal equipment that encouraged us to climb, swing, balance, and jump, with zero guardrails. Great exercise for young kids and perfect for releasing pent-up energy. How could you find fault in that? There was the monkey or the crossing bars and the jungle gym, where we'd race up, across, or over. And one wrong move might mean getting the wind knocked out of you when you land flat on your back. Who didn't mind a little attention though, am I right? The giant swing set was harmless, pumping our legs for more height.
Pumping.
Until it was that right time to pull your arms around the chain and jump from the highest point to feel, just for a moment, like a bird on the wing before landing on the dirt below, hopefully without the twisted ankle, which you just walk off. Was it the teeter-totter and merry-go-round that caused the outrage? I'll admit you had to watch your teeter partner carefully. The minute they saw something else they wanted to do, they might just totter off and send you plummeting to the ground with a good wallop to your tailbone. Hard to shake off, but we weren't permanently damaged. Not that we knew of. The merry-go-round was a given, and the more to pile on, the merrier. There was nothing like a teacher or an older kid who would stand off to the side, cigarette in hand, and spin it. Just spin it. Harder and harder, faster and faster. It was all just fun and games. Until someone either flung off into the rocks or got their feet caught under the metal disc while it rotated madly. But this was when a trip to the emergency room was a flex. Today, jumping from swings is frowned upon by the ever-present looming eye of overprotective parents and teachers. Teeter-totters and merry-go-rounds, they're museum relics, and the poor slide has been neutered, reduced in height, and from a 45-degree angle to a measly 20. Oh, and made of, get this, plastic. Plastic, I tell you. How can you get any speed on that? No, it couldn't have been the playground that people think was so hazardous. I mean, it was good for us. We knew the risks, but it was all part of the game. We played hard and dusted ourselves off and did it all over again. Maybe today's parents and kids think that since we didn't wear helmets during the GEN Xperience, we should be dead. We didn't need no stinking helmets. They stuck out like a sore thumb whenever anyone wore one while riding their bike or skateboard. We may have thought something was wrong with them, but of course they were there for our protection. Gen X kids took the bumps and bruises as part of the experience. Wearing helmets, or pads for that matter, were for nerds and never seemed necessary. We rode, raced, jumped, popped wheelies, took on passengers, and drifted into a stop while squealing our brakes without helmets once crossing our minds. Today, you don't see a young person without a helmet. As their use increased, I remember thinking more people must be training to be professional cyclists. I was wrong. Protecting your noggin from serious injury became all the rage. Now, we all remember someone who experienced a bad tumble or even a crash and burn while their face grinded against the pavement. Hell, it could have been you. But this is when battle scars were looked at with awe and getting a cast was cool. This is where we built up our pain tolerance too, a great trait to be sure. Some people today might think that we should have worn helmets when riding in the back of a pickup truck. No one got time for that. Just for a good time. And those big dips, bumps, and sharp turns would deliver if they didn't fling you out onto the pavement below. But that just didn't happen. Well, not much. The wind whipped our hair around our faces while the world zipped by, as thrilling as any roller coaster. We'd make eye contact at passing cars, satisfied in knowing those drivers wished they could be us. We'd have to yell just to hear one another as we ricocheted like pinballs, sometimes taking a hard knock to the butt bone in what was far from a comfortable ride. But we weren't there for comfort, just the thrill of the moment. And more exciting than the back of a station wagon, but just barely. The exhilaration here didn't come from open-air freedom, but the bumper car motion inside. The back of a station wagon was a common place to shove the kids into. All of the kids, even if they weren't yours. To a game, to the DQ after the game, the drive-in, a school function. The family wagon was a game changer for parents with active lives and weekend plans. The station wagon was designed for more passengers, but not everyone was guaranteed a seat. With the numbers being transported from here to there, the wagon got overbooked. But we hoped to ride in the cargo space all the same. Jamming ourselves in like sardines probably kept us safe when the car caught air over bumps and potholes. Inevitably, someone's head pounded the roof of the car or whacked into a window as the turns and stops also made for a memorable ride. Kids flopped around uncontrollably with no restraints, and we were there for it. We got visibly excited when the opportunity to ride in the back of the wagon presented itself. When we could gaze out that back window at the world we were leaving behind, or the driver behind us. And if your back window rolled down, you can bet we were making that driver feel very uncomfortable hanging out without a care in the world. We had seen the safety films detailing how this mode of travel was obviously not a good idea. But none of that was going to happen to us, would it? So the truck bed in the station wagon wasn't the end of us because we made it out alive. Well, most of us anyway. What's the fuss? I suppose we could have been killed walking to school, but I hadn't heard of anyone who had, or even anyone who'd gone missing. That is, except for the boy on the milk carton. But a day didn't go by when we weren't hearing about stranger danger. There was no sugarcoating it. We heard the stories and were scared into believing we'd end up just like that kid if we didn't heed the wisdom of McGruff the crime dog. His message was a constant one, reinforced by special guests at school, film strips, our teachers, and parents. Wait a minute. McGruff. Where is he today? Was he put down for telling the truth? The truth was, school, teachers, and parents were all on the same page, and even our favorite characters got into the action to help teach us ways to avoid getting nabbed by strangers, or even family members, which was much more common. Be vigilant or you could disappear, we were told, and thank goodness because we had to walk to school. Not just a rite of passage, mind you, but often a necessity. No one thought much of it. Everyone was doing it. Parents driving kids wasn't always an option, and if you lived close enough, buses were not going to pick you up. It was walk or ride your bike, and that was the way it was. Lucky for us, walking to school meant meeting other kids along the way. Same place, same time. We'd ask stupid what if and but why questions without any parental hovering or interference. Although today is statistically much safer than it was in the 70s and 80s, no amount of teaching children about the potential dangers and the ramifications of stranger danger is ever enough. But walking to school didn't do us in. As a matter of fact, it allowed us to observe and learn about the world around us and other kids we interacted with. So, is this what all the hullabaloo is about? I can't see anything but positives about walking to school. We played outside, and sometimes even in the front yard. How did we ever survive? Wait until they hear that we did it all while barefoot. Sadly, some of today's parents are from my generation, and they've just forgotten what it was like to take your toys outside on a Sunday morning, to play in the yard, build forts from shipping boxes, all while a parent went unnoticed, casually checking in on you from a window, satisfied you were keeping yourself occupied. This was not just our playground, but our school, the school of life, the school of hard knocks. We might beg mom for some change so we can walk down to A&W or Tasty Freeze, or simply run after the ice cream truck, shouting for them to stop and buy a treat for a hot day. Still barefoot, of course. We were unsupervised when we played like this, and parents knew this was good for development. Never let anyone tell you parents didn't care or that they were neglectful. Caring in this generation was knowing exactly the right time to butt in. Thankfully, that wasn't often. Not every Gen Xperience parent was the same, I know.
The old man grabbed me and said, "Hey, smoke up, Johnny!"
But for the most part, parents didn't want to be overbearing or interfere in the atmosphere of discovery and self-awareness we kids got from these play patterns. This was part of the growing up process, and we blossomed from it, expected it, and looked forward to much of it. The freedom and self-reliance we garnered from this would serve us all well as we continued through adolescence. So, that didn't do us in either. What was it that gets everyone so worked up about being raised in the 70s and 80s? Maybe it was these. Do you remember the teeth on those pedals? If so, you probably weren't riding your bike barefoot, but that didn't stop some kids either. We rode for hours on end. Shoes on, but shirts for boys were optional. You might start solo, certain to meet up with your friends or even other neighborhood kids that would become lifelong pals. That right there probably adds to younger generation's surprise we made it out of the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s alive. We were kids and we acted like it. Exploring abandoned buildings, dumpster diving at the local drugstore, seeing how much weight the frozen stream could take before cracking by stepping on it. Rock throwing distance contests, skipping stones on the river, walking down the railroad tracks, adventuring in the forest, and poking dead animal carcasses with a stick. Fascinating and disgusting as that may sound, these were real-world experiences that helped us grow and learn about life, death, and even conflict. On our own for much of the day, we had to develop conflict resolution in real time. Someone might end up with a black eye, but probably a good friend too. How can anyone argue this isn't healthy for young people? Got hungry? Someone's mom was willing to give us a nibble and some tang before hopping back on our bikes for another adventure to the edge of town, watching a sunset, and having meaning-of-life conversations that only made sense to kids during our Gen Xperience. Surprised we made it out alive? Don't be. This was living. What are some of your favorite adventures? Let us know in the comments. Now, drowning is a very real fear, and I get it. And there were plenty of chances for that to happen during the Gen Xperience. But we also weren't going to miss any birthday pool parties or jumping in the lake or river for a swim. And nothing was going to stop us from a summer day at the town's old swimming hole, the Big Pool. An oversimplified name given to the city pool. Like the Roll Arena skating rink, the city pool was another third space to get out and spend time at during the 70s and 80s. Parents might send you there just to get outside and stay active. Depending on your age, you weren't likely going alone. You might go with a group of friends or an older sibling sent to accompany you. It wasn't all that scary. It's where many of us learned to swim. Named the Big Pool for its sheer size and range of depth, the furthest end was at least 12 feet deep. And on that edge stood the twisting water slide and the daunting diving boards, a low and a high one. Like a playground slide, you always dreamed of one day climbing the steep steps and diving right in, literally. Once you mustered the courage and began to climb, you wondered if you were in over your head. It was nerve-wracking for sure. There were no rails as you walked to the edge of that board. But you also didn't want to face the embarrassment climbing back down the ladder against everyone coming up, so you took the plunge to the choppy waters below. Not much of a dive initially, more of a feet-first, plug-nosed jump, where the fall felt like miles. Surfacing, you were overcome with pure pride. Like countless kids before you, you survived, conquered a fear, and were ready to do it again. And just in case there was an issue, there were always great lifeguards on duty who came to the rescue. I should know. It happened to me once. Are public pools still a thing? Does anyone use them? I remember ours with sparkling water, clean, bright, and a great gathering place for kids you knew from school, or meeting new friends, especially when a teenager. So I can't see how swimming at the public pool would be something anyone today would be clutching their pearls about. I can't imagine a childhood without it. Oh wait, we also climbed trees. A lot. Is that it? Is that what puts kids and parents today into a swirl about growing up Gen X? Those two sycamores in my front yard dared me to climb them. I had to. It's like they grew with kids climbing them in mind. Long, strong limbs reaching every direction, where a running start could snag you that first branch to swing your legs up and over. Pulling yourself up the rest of the way, you start to ascend. Right over our front lawn, you might be joined in the tree by a brother or sister or a friend walking by. When you were up high enough, you just sat there, straddling a hardy bough while staring at the cars going by below. A dutiful, "Be careful," came from the porch, hollered by a casually concerned mother. She wasn't going to interrupt this childhood obligation. This required exercise. She only let you know she was around. The world was certainly small up there, and you could look down on it while picking apart leaves, inspecting bugs, or studying the blooms on each branch. Watching kids playing ball in the street, you might yell, "Car!" nice and loud so they could clear out of the way for the oncoming vehicle.
Yeah.
How do you warn everybody about cars coming?
Usually we yell car or something.
Of course we fell. Some falls were even serious, but I had never heard of anyone in my town exiting this world by means of tree climbing. Maybe a little time in traction, but what is that in the grand scheme of things, right? No one is pretending things didn't happen. Kids got hurt. But if you didn't, how would you learn and grow with the knowledge of cause and effect? More importantly, how would you experience those adventures and discoveries promised to us as children? Climbing trees, swimming in the public pool, running barefoot, even staying at home alone at night by age 10, hours of biking without a helmet, riding in truck beds, you'd think we'd never make it. But here we are, nevertheless. And don't you forget it. We made it through what some people today see as impossible odds and unimaginable hazards. But we just saw it as a Saturday. Gen X is here to stay. Be appalled, be horrified, be aghast, be amazed about how we lived our young lives. You will find few of us who would have their Gen Xperience any other way. Please do me a favor and click the like and subscribe. It really helps, and you will find more great shows right here on the channel. Thanks again for spending a few minutes with me, and until next time.
We're smart enough to see a car when it's coming.